Hey everyone, Rob Ryder, February 27th, I believe, Monday, 2012. Um, this shouldn't take very long, and I still scratch my head after reading it over and over myself, saying, "Yeah, this is what it says." Um, a lot of shit's been done to a brother over $10, is all I can say, and I'm going to show you what I mean here in just a second. We're going to talk about mortgages. So mortgages, contracts, conveyancing. Mortgages are of several kinds as they concern as the concern the kind of property mortgage. They are mortgages of lands, tenements, and crediments, or of goods and chattels. So a lot of things can be mortgaged, obviously, and they affect the title of the thing mortgaged, or as they affect. Oh, there's a semicolon. As they affect the title of the thing mortgaged, they are legal and equitable. Sorry for my lack of talking. I'll try to get better. In equity, all kinds of property, real or personal, which are capable of an absolute sale, may be subject to a mortgage. So you got rights and remainders and revisions. So you got rights you can mortgage a franchise, a chose in action, may therefore be mortgaged. But a mere possibility or expectancy as that of an heir cannot. Right? So an absolute sale is ownership of property, transfers the seller to the buyer when the parties sign the contract. So an ownership is the title to the property. All right, so that's absolute. Well, okay, so there's mortgage, right, and it's unmodified. Well, let's modify it here, and we'll call it a legal mortgage. So a legal mortgage of lands may be described to be a conveyance of lands from a debtor to his creditor as a pledge and security for repayment of a sum of money borrowed, maybe $10, or performance of a covenant, some kind of agreement that runs with the land. Such conveyances shall be void on payment of the money and interest on a certain day, or the performance of such covenant by the time appointed, and that could be a defeasance. It talks about it later, which by the conveyance of the lands becomes absolute in law. Yet the mortgager, you, has equity of redemption. That is a right in equity on the performance of an agreement within a reasonable time to call for a reconveyance of the land. So there's a legal mortgage out there that requires a repayment of some sum of money. It says money, it doesn't say Federal Reserve notes, legal tender, or the performance of some kind of covenant. Tap your heels 3 times, sign a piece of paper a certain way. What's the covenant? There's some kind of agreement. But they're void as soon as you make the payment or do the covenant. And I was just talking to somebody earlier today. He said he got his mortgage in 2003, and then he sent some paperwork in to revoke the deed of trust, and he got an answer back today, and they said, well, your time to do that ran out in 2006, like in 3 years. Got the 3-year rule there. But nevertheless, so why do I say this? Well, okay. So there's 2 different ways you can have this, right? You can have it for a sum of money or performance of a covenant. Well, let's see what some of these things look like. Here's a warranty deed, all right? And on this warranty deed, it says in here, witness the said grantor for the consideration sum of $10 and $0. For $10, right? Where did the $10 come from? Did you write a check for $10? I don't think you did. Somebody gave this man $10. And I'm going to say that that's the sum of money borrowed. You borrowed $10. I don't know how, right? But somehow you borrowed $10. Or there's the other type where there's some kind of covenant. Well, what would that be? See, in this one here, it just says for and in consideration a sum of $230,000. It doesn't say 10. To it in hand at or before the sealing of these presents by, hereinafter, the grantee. The receipt whereof is hereby acknowledged, have granted, bargained, sold, released, the said premise, do grant, bargain to the grantee, heirs forever, file and describe property to wit. So this doesn't have anything in there about giving up $10, right? It doesn't say that. But it doesn't have to, because we're going to see there's two types of deeds, and one of them could have a defeasance with it, where you have to do that instead. Okay, so it's a universal rule in equity that once a mortgage, always a mortgage. Every attempt, therefore, to defeat the equity of redemption must fail. See, equity of redemption. Now, this is Bouvier's talking. That's where we're getting this from, out of Bouvier's. So, equity of redemption, a right which a mortgagee, them, of an estate has of redeeming it after it has been forfeited at law by non-payment at the time appointed for the money secured by the mortgage to be paid by paying the amount of the debt, interest, and cost. That don't sound very good to us, does it? Let's go on. An equity of redemption is a mere creature of the court of equity found in this principle. That as a mortgage is a pledge for securing repayment of the sum of money of a mortgage to the mortgagee, all right, going to pay them back $10. It is but natural justice to consider the ownership of the land to still be vested in the mortgagor, in you, subject only to the legal title of the mortgagee, them, so far as such legal title is necessary to his security. So he can have the legal title for the $10, even though you're still the owner. You're the owner, subject to legal title to the mortgagee, right? Because you haven't paid them back the $10. Pay them back the $10, and then they don't have legal title anymore. In Pennsylvania, however, redemption is a legal right. Well, that's good. We like redemption. The phrase equity and redemption is indiscriminately, though perhaps not correctly, applied to the right of the mortgagor, and that's you, to regain his estate, both before and after a breach of condition. Imagine that. You can pay this mortgage anytime you want to. In North Carolina, okay, so I had one. Damn it, I closed it. Shit. Oh, I had one open. Okay. The phrase equity or redemption is, though perhaps not correctly applied, to the right of the mortgagor to regain his title, both before and after breach of condition. In North Carolina, by statute, the former is called legal right of redemption, so that is before, and the later is an equity of redemption, so after the breach of condition. So they've lent you $10, they've done something, or they've set some kind of covenant that you're supposed to do within a certain amount of time. If you do it before that, it's just called legal right of redemption. If you do it after, it's going to be equity of redemption. Legal would be the court of the King's Bench. Where equity, I think this is where you would go to the exchequer. Actually, I think you go to the chancellor, who's over the circuit court and the court of chancery and the exchequer. In my opinion, that's chief justice. The chief justice of probate is over the King's Bench, and which has basically final jurisdiction over everything. It's the most supreme of the supreme courts. Once a mortgage, always a mortgage is a universal rule in equity. The right of redemption is said to be inseparable from the mortgage, as that of repleving from a distress, and every attempt to limit its right must fail. Once a mortgage, always a mortgage. I don't care if you've lost your house already and you're in the street. You can go claim the mortgage, pay the $10, whatever we need to do after the breach of condition, and the later the equity of redemption. We need to get some kind of equity of redemption. But it says once a mortgage, always a mortgage. The right of redemption exists not only in the mortgagee himself, you, but in his heirs, personal representatives, assignee, and every other person who has an interest or legal or equitable lien upon the lands, and therefore a tenant in dower, tenant in courtesy, remainder man, revision, judgment, da 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 da. Everybody thinks they have a right of redemption, right? But it starts with you. Okay, so basically, mortgagee is them. It states, he whom a mortgage is made, he is entitled payment of the money secured by him by the mortgage. He has the legal estate in the land mortgage and may recover in an ejectment. On the other hand, he cannot commit waste. He cannot make lease to the injury of the mortgagor, you, and he must account for the profits he receives out of the thing mortgaged when in possession. So you're going to give him something that gives value, keeps gaining value, and he has to keep track of that and give it back to you. So the mortgagor, you, estates, contracts, he who makes mortgage, he has rights and is liable to certain duties as such. He's a quasi-tenant at will. It's at your will. You want to go pay the $10, you can be done with it. He is entitled to an equity of redemption after forfeiture. Waited too long? Well, you can go get your money back. You can get the escrow back. I don't know if you get the house or not, but let's get the escrow. Because when you pay the $10 back, you get back the escrow. That's what's holding up the escrow. Or this covenant that runs with the land that we need to find out what that is. Okay, so you cannot commit waste nor make lease injurious to the mortgage or to them, as between the mortgagor, you, and the third persons, the mortgagor, you, is owner of the land. You're always the owner of the land compared to anybody else. He cannot, however, do nothing which will defeat the rights of a mortgagee, them, as to make lease to bind him. So I think the mortgagee then goes and makes a lease to make a lease to bind him. I don't know if that means they make it with a third person or not. Not really sure what that means. As to the form, such a mortgage must be in writing when it is intended to convey the legal title. It is either in one single deed, and that's what I think is going on with maybe this one here, right? One single deed where it says $10. We know what to do. Which contains the whole contract, which is the usual form, or two separate instruments. So on this one, there is no $10. So maybe there's a separate instrument that's the conveyance that needs to be done. The one containing an absolute conveyance, the other a defeasance. So in one was a conveyance and the other one's a defeasance. It's, an indentured deed, two-part deed. But it may be observed in general that whatever clauses or covenants there are in conveyance, though they seem to import an absolute disposition or conditional purchase, yet if upon the whole it appears to have been the intention of the parties that such conveyance should be a mortgage only, or pass an estate redeemable, a court of equity will always so construe it. If it says mortgage on it, that's what it was meant to be. So everything that's happened, no matter how absolute it looks, ain't to the court. As the money borrowed on the mortgage is seldom paid on the day appointed, so let's say it's supposed to be 3 years later we're supposed to pay it. Well, you haven't paid it. Mortgages have now become entirely subject to the court of chancery. You didn't pay your debts on time. Shame on you. You're a sinner. Brother, you didn't pay your damn debt. Where it is an established rule that the mortgagee, them, holds the estate merely as a pledge or security for the repayment of his money. So he's holding this estate just waiting to be repaid for his money. Therefore, a mortgage is considered an equity as personal estate. So all that escrow you have going in there is yours, just holding it as security until you pay him back $10, or do whatever the covenant is. The mortgager, you, is held to be the real owner of the land, the debt being considered the principal, and the land the accessory. Whenever the debt is discharged, the interest of the mortgagee, them, in the lands determines, of course, and he is looked on in equity as a trustee for the mortgager. Well, now he's a trustee for you. You're the beneficiary, I guess. So that was illegal. Now we got an equitable mortgage of land as ones where the mortgagor you does not convey regularly, like a common law deed, I think that means, because as a rule is what regularly means, the land, but doesn't act, seal the papers and acknowledged, look at a deed of trust or mortgage and you'll see that you've done that, by which he manifests his determination to bind the same for the security of a debt he owes. An agreement in writing to transfer an estate as a security for payment of sum of money borrowed, even deposit of title deeds. So look at an agreement in writing to transfer an estate as a security for the repayment of the sum of money borrowed, comma, or even a deposit of title deeds, and a verbal agreement will have the same effect as creating an equitable mortgage. So, you've done some act by which manifests his determination to bind the same as security to the debt he owes, to the $10. But that's all it's for, is the $10. So I think that, by them having this recorded, because that would be the deposit of the title deeds when they recorded it, and just a verbal agreement of any kind that we're going to go record the title deeds would be enough to say you got an equitable mortgage. You wouldn't even have to sign the paperwork according to this. For there to be an equitable mortgage, that you somehow, by sealing the papers and acknowledge it, or by whatever, by which he manifests his determination to bind the same for security of the debt he owes. But the debt you owe is $10. But in Pennsylvania, there's no such thing as equitable mortgages. Such an agreement will be carried into execution in equity against the mortgager, you, or anyone claiming under him, with notice, either actual or constructive, of such deposit having been made. So, such a deposit having been made. So, such an agreement will be carried into execution in equity against you, or anyone claiming under you, with notice, either actual or constructive, of such deposit having been made. Okay. Well, to be executed, like your grant deed or warranty deed, right? First, that had to be done common law by the grantor, and then you had to acknowledge it. Now it would have been executed. So that would be an executed deed. Such an agreement would be carried into execution in equity. So now they're going to carry it into execution in equity against you. Because this thing's been deposited. And that's the agreement they're talking about. Even a deposit of title deeds. As long as it's deposited and you owe this money, I guess they can do it to you. So either we got to pay the money back or take the stuff out of the record. And I don't know if you can do that, right? But these are questions that we're just going to have to go ask now, right? But we're almost done with this. So a mortgage of goods is distinguished from a mere pawn, a pledge. By a grant or conveyance of goods, engage, or mortgage, the whole legal title passes conditionally to the mortgagee, them. So the whole legal title passes to them. And if not redeemed at the time stipulated, the title becomes absolute law, though equity will interfere to compel a redemption. So what are goods? Wow. Money, valuable securities, other mere personal effects, and other mere personal effects. Yeah, everything that we need, right, to exist in this fictional world. So a mortgage of goods is distinguished from a mere pledge. By a grant or conveyance of goods, engage, or mortgage, the whole legal title passes conditionally to the mortgagee, and if not redeemed, okay, so there's conditions on it with them. If not redeemed at the time stipulated, it becomes absolute. But in a pledge, a special property only passes to the pledgee. The general property remains with the pledger. There have been some cases of mortgages of chattels which have been held valid without any actual possession in the mortgagee, in you. But they stand on very peculiar grounds and may be deemed exceptions to the general rule. Now we're talking about the body and your landed estate stuff. More on that in a minute. It is proper to observe that a conditional sale, anything other than absolute sale, I guess, would be a conditional sale, with the right to repurchase very nearly resembles a mortgage. Okay, and if we're talking about these mortgages, right, where they've lent us some money, so really it's like a bond, let's say, repurchase the bond, well, the security on a house is $10, or, you know, moving a piece of paper. But they are distinguished. It is said that if the debt remains, a transaction is a mortgage, but if the debt is extinguished by mutual agreement or by money advanced, is not loaned, but the grantor has a refund it in a given time and have it reconveyanced, this is a conditional sale. In cases of doubt, however, the courts of equity will always lean in favor of mortgage. So if they think it looks like a mortgage, they're going to treat it like a mortgage. Okay, according to the laws of Louisiana, whenever I see the laws of Louisiana, I think civil law. A mortgage is right granted to the creditor over the property of his debtor for the security of his debt and gives him the power of having his property seized and sold in default of payment. That's what they're trying to do in civil law. Mortgage is conventional, legal, or judicial. A conventional mortgage is a contract by which a person binds a whole of his property or a portion of it only in favor of another to secure the execution of some agreement, but without divesting himself of the possession. Well, I'm going to say it's your body and your landed estate. That's the whole. And a portion of it only would be the landed estate, drop of blood. So that's a conventional mortgage, right? That's common law mortgage. It's a deed. A legal mortgage is that which is created by operational law, which is also called a tacit mortgage because it is established by the law without the aid of any agreement. There's no agreement, yet the law establishes it to be a legal mortgage. Well, go figure. It's because they did it to you as an infant, and how could you have agreed? A few examples of nature mortgage for minors, persons interdicted, and absentees. They have a legal mortgage on the property of their tutors and curators as a security for their administration. So somehow we have a legal mortgage over the people that now act as our tutors and curators. And a legal mortgage would be, to me it's a trust. And the latter have a mortgage on the property of the former for advances they have made. Now I think they mean the later, being the curators, have a mortgage on the former, being the tutors. I didn't get into that deep. I really want to talk about houses, so I haven't really gotten all this last stuff in my head. I'm just going to go through it real quick. The property of persons who, without being lawfully appointed curators or tutors of minors, interfere with their property is bound by legal mortgage from the day on which the first act of interference was done. Well, they're just saying that this is where all your escrow is going to come from when you go claim it by getting your body unregistered. A judicial mortgage is that resulting from judgments. Guess what? It's a mortgage. Whether these be rendered on contested cases or by default, whether they be final or provisional, in favor of the person obtaining them. All right? And none of these are ever really final because they're all civil and they can all be appealed to the King's Bench. Mortgage with respect to the manner in which it binds the property is divided into general mortgage or a special mortgage. General mortgage is that which binds all the property present, or future of the debtor. Special mortgage, that which binds only certain specified property. The following objects are alone susceptible to a mortgage: immovables, subject to alienation, and their accessories considered likewise as immovables. The usufruct, the use of the same description of property with its accessories during the time of its duration. Slaves, ships, and other vessels. What's the chances they got a mortgage on your body? Right? So, that's why I'm trying to get out. But in the meantime, the important thing is this right here. A legal mortgage of lands may be described to be a conveyance of lands by a debtor to his creditor as a pledge and security for the repayment of a sum of money borrowed. Where did the $10 come from that's on these warranty deeds? If you didn't give it to them, the bank must have. That's what you've borrowed. That's what you have to pay back. And it says the word money. So you need to find out what sum of money they lent you. And I guess what I'm thinking is, because you can do this on any mortgage, even if you've lost your house, you start by writing them a letter asking for it to be, well, if you've already lost your house, you're going to go do a plea of the crown, right? Because something's already happened, so now we need to go and undo this, and we're going to ask them where we pay the $10 at. But it should be on your paperwork for your deed of trust. Wherever you're making payments now we'll say monthly payments probably, right? Well, there's another payment called the principal. And that isn't the same as the monthly payment, or it would be called the same thing. We want to pay the principal, the amount that was borrowed, the $10. Or we want to do whatever conveyance shall be void. We got to do the conveyance. There's some kind of covenant, some kind of agreement that runs with the land. Those may be the ones where we're doing the deed of revocation is perfectly fine, because really you're just doing a defeasance. But I would be demanding to find out if there was a defeasance contract involved with your mortgage. Or who do you pay the $10 to? Because when you do this, whatever's in escrow is coming back to you. All those payments, everything you put into it should come back to you. That's how I see it, everybody. And, that's my 2 cents on this. Have more on something else later. Have a great night. See ya.